Exposed. 7 spine-chilling scary farm stories revealed. Hidden horrors cursed by the haunted past. Ellen stood on the creaky porch of the dilapidated farmhouse, the wind howling like a lost soul, and for the first time in months, she felt a flicker of hope. After losing her husband, she believed this was their chance for a fresh start, a sanctuary far from the chaos of the city, where memories clung like shadows. The town of Willow Creek was small, charming in its own eerie way with its cobblestone streets and old storefronts. Yet something else lurked beneath its surface. As she began unpacking boxes, strange feelings swirled in her gut. The locals gave her odd glances that slipped between curiosity and disdain, hushed whispers cascading over the air like creeping fog. Sam's voice cut through her thoughts, eager and wild. "Mom, I saw something out there in the cornfields." He pointed towards the knocking shadows beyond their backyard, eyes wide and trembling. Mia stood close, gripping her brother's arm, a pale specter of fear. "Just your imagination, buddy," Ellen said, trying to shake off the disquiet growing in her chest. But when sunset drew near, an oppressive stillness settled over their new home. It was as if the farmhouse itself was holding its breath, waiting. The evening wore on, clinging to an eerie quiet until sharp thuds echoed from the attic, echoing like a heartbeat in the deathly silence. "Mom, what was that?" Sam's voice cracked as he clutched Mia tightly, eyes darting towards the darkened corners of the room, each creak of the floorboards amplifying the emotion. Ellen's heart raced, but she steadied herself. Taking a flashlight, she led the way even as dread curled around her mind. Step by step, they approached the attic door. Her hands trembled as she reached for the handle. The air thickened with a coldness that made her skin crawl. With a deep breath, she swung the creaky door wide. Dust billowed around them as the flashlight's beams sliced through the gloom, revealing ghostly silhouettes dancing in the corners. The walls were covered in something not just something warnings etched in a frantic scrawl. "Leave while you can." The chilling message sent icy tendrils of fear racing down Ellen's spine, and the sight of unnatural symbols made her stomach lurch. "What is this?" she whispered, trembling. Sam and Mia exchanged terrified glances, the shadows growing heavier as night came crashing in. "Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system, and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Ellen's heart hammered as she bent to uncover something from beneath the old floorboards. It was a worn journal, pages yellowed with age, filled with frantic writing from her late father-in-law. What she read made her blood run cold. Each line predicted tragedies rooted deep within the farmhouse, connections to things best left buried. Staring at the illustrations of their new home within the narrative, realization washed over her. The home could be a curse, its very foundation soaked with sorrow and secrets that refused to die. As she stood up, a dark shimmer caught her eye outside the window. Shadows moved through tall corn, pulsing like a heartbeat. Panic surged within her as she turned to her children, fear etched across their faces. She knew they needed to escape this place, but the shadows were closing in, and the home that once felt like a sanctuary now loomed like a predator, waiting to devour them whole. Would she uncover the truth in time to protect Sam and Mia? Or would Willow Creek's dark legacy claim them all? Ellen's breath quickened as dread brewed in her chest. She mustered the courage to step closer to the window, the flashlight trembling in her hand. The shadows swirled just beyond the cornfield, coiling and knotting into shapes that felt all too familiar. Each lump and crease of the crop took on a sinister life of its own, moving in sync with a rhythm she could not comprehend. "Mom?" Sam whispered, his voice barely audible, edged with terror. Mia squeezed her brother's arm tighter, the air heavy with unsaid fears. Ellen's resolve wavered. "Stay back," she said, her voice steadier than she felt. The journal felt damp against her skin, full of warnings that seemed to pulse as if sharing their own heartbeat. She could almost hear the desperation of the past, a plea for someone to listen to heed the warnings carved into the wood. Squinting through the dusty panes, she focused on the silhouettes creeping closer, swaying like shadows caught in a phantom breeze. "Come on, let us explore the rest of the attic," she managed, desperate to regain control even if it meant confronting the ominous unknown. They turned back into the shifting darkness, their footsteps crunching against the loose boards below. In the corner of the attic, nestled behind an old trunk, Ellen caught a glimmer of silver. It was a necklace, intricate and beautiful, but the moment she touched it, a cold wave washed over her, sending chills to her core. A cacophony of whispers unfurled around them, piercing through the quiet voices that sounded eerily familiar, woven with strains of sorrow and longing. "Get out, while you can," echoed through the dust, resonating in her mind. Was this the echo of those who had tried to warn her before? "Mom, we need to go." Sam's wide eyes searched hers, frantic. Cold sweat dotted Mia's forehead, and the shadows surrounding them thickened, swirling like a tempest. Ellen's instincts screamed at her. The children's fear was now her own. Okay, let us go back downstairs," she whispered urgently, edging toward the rickety attic door, feeling the oppressive air around her tighten like a vice. But the door wouldn't budge. Panic clawed at her throat as she twisted and pushed against it, her heart racing. "Mom!" Sam screamed, a sound that sent stabbing anguish through her. She flung herself against the door, pounding her fists against the wood. "No, we have to leave." The whispers grew louder, becoming a chorus of sheer panic. "You should have left," the phantoms echoed, each plea a slice through the veil of her resolve. Suddenly, the attic's walls began to tremble, as if the very structure was alive. Ellen backed away, finally turning to the children, their wide eyes reflecting horror. The shadows were forming outlines now, distinct figures at the edges of their minds, faces twisted in agony, fingers reaching out to her. "Mom, help!" Mia cried, tears streaming down her pale cheeks. Before she could respond, the ground trembled under their feet, and a deep, guttural sound pulsed through the wooden beams. The room shuddered, dust pouring like a murky flood. Ellen grabbed her children's hands, and in a desperate bid, they surged toward a window crawling through the light, pushing against unseen forces. Just as they reached the edge, a force gripped her at the last moment, pulling her back. A breathless scream lodged in her throat as she fought against it. In that moment she understood. They weren't just trapped in a house. They were ensnared in a history soaked in despair. Would they break free, or would the darkness consume them, as it had for so many before? The answers loomed closer, gathering around them like a storm. What chilling truths awaited beyond the shadows? The walls shuddered, and Ellen squeezed her children's hands tighter. The room felt like it was being sucked into a void, threatening to collapse under the weight of the shadows surrounding them. She could almost hear the heartbeat of the house, thrumming in sync with the frantic rhythm of her own pulse. "Mom, please!" Sam's voice quivered, tinged with desperation. "I can feel it." Ellen turned, her breath catching in her throat as she faced the door. She pushed again, but the wood resisted her. Panic clawed at her insides. "Stay back," she shouted, though she barely felt in control herself. The whispers crescendoed. "Stay with us," a voice hissed. It was painfully close, brushing against her ear, chilling her. With every pulse of the air, the shadows crawled nearer, swirling, stretching into blurs that twisted around her and the children. Each pulse pulled her deeper into the dark. Something in her chest whispered to man up and shield her kids. Yet all she felt was dread. The figures in the corner grew more defined, a grotesque parade of despair, faces contorted in silent screams, melding into the darkness. The air thickened with an unholy stench, like charred earth clinging to her skin. "Mom, we have to get out," Mia cried, her voice breaking. "Keep pushing, we're almost there," Ellen urged, bracing herself against the door one last time. With a shove, Something cracked, a splintering sound punctured the air, and the door buckled slightly. She hastily yanked at the knob, hoping it had relaxed just enough, but no, nothing. The shadows seemed to hiss disappointment, anger. Finally, a gust of wind barreled through the window, blasting dust up into their faces. Ellen squinted against it, and in that instant, the shadows receded just a bit, as if startled by unexpected light. "Up!" she yelled. She felt a spark ignite, a fierce need to survive. Pushed her forward. She turned her shoulder into the door, ready to charge once more. Then, she spotted it, a shimmering oval glint on the floor below. The necklace. It lay there, seemingly aglow, but beneath her skin, an undeniable chill crawled up her spine. The house seemed to groan around them, the dusty floor trembling like the beat of a heart. "Leave it," Sam pleaded, tugging at her sleeve. "Mom, please just go. What if it's cursed?" she murmured under her breath. The mom in her hesitated, but the urge to confront the shadowy figures just out of reach surged within her. The whispers warped into a maddening chant, begging her to take it. Get out, mixed with reasons for staying. The sheer overload of spirit and fear muddied her thoughts. Strong fingers wrapped around the necklace. "Mom!" Mia screamed. The shadows surged forward, coiling around Elena's waist with an icy grip. With a raw strength she didn't know she had, she yanked her children toward her, clutching the necklace tightly. The door groaned once more, an echo of surrender. "Run!" she shouted, nearly dragging them as they surged against the ice-cold air towards the window. The shadows snarled, twisting around the three of them like a tempest threatening to pull them under. Suddenly, the necklace pulsed with a life of its own, vibrating against her palm. It unleashed a blinding light that erupted, momentarily revealing outlines of faces twisted in pain and sorrow. Deformed bodies ripped from a time unknown flashed before her eyes, all pleading until the world around them dimmed again. Before Ellen could take a breath, she felt herself being hurled backwards. The floor buckled beneath them as they teetered between staying and escaping, between history and oblivion. In that split second of indecision, the house let out a feral roar that sent a wave of cold through the room. Then silence, oddly thick and suffocating, swamped them. Ellen glanced at her children, their terror mirrored in her own fear-stricken eyes. "Mom," Sam whispered, frozen in place. What if we never leave?" Mia squeaked, trembling. Around them, the whispers stirred once more, urgency lacing their cries. What shocking truth lives inside? Ellen's heart raced as she gripped the necklace tighter, the shadows seeping back towards them. The pulsing dimmed, but the darkness had only just begun to encroach. What awaited them beyond this moment of quiet? Would the answers shatter their world, or would they unveil a horror far worse than what they had ever imagined? The shrill cry of the wind sliced through the silence like a knife. Light flickered, and shadows trembled in response. Ellen's grip tightened around the necklace, its cold metal suddenly throbbing with urgency. The air was different now, charged with a dark electricity that sent jolts of panic up her spine. "Stay close," she hissed, her voice barely above a whisper, as if raising it might conjure the very horrors threatening them. Sam and Mia crouched low, fear etched into their small faces. She could see it, the vulnerability of children caught in a twisted world she had dragged them into. The house creaked ominously, a low groan like a warning exhaled from the depths of its foundation. Ellen dared a glance around the room, each corner shrouded in thick darkness, inching ever closer. The trembling figures from before were now almost visible, their twisted forms glistening with an ethereal sheen. They seemed to beckon to her, hands stretching toward the necklace, mouths moving in another silent chant. "Mom, make it stop," Sam whimpered, clutching Mia tightly. Ellen felt her heart racing as dread washed over her. They were on the edge of something unspeakable, teetering between salvation and eternal damnation. "Just a little longer," Ellen murmured, trying to convince herself as the shadows pressed in. She could feel them breathing, their cold, bitter breath dancing around her. The whispers grew louder, merging into a chaotic symphony demanding to be heard. "Mom, it's not safe." Mia's voice broke through her entrancement. Ellen's mind swirled. Would it truly save them, or had she awakened something that couldn't be quelled? Suddenly, the necklace flared again, sending out a pulse of light that illuminated the dark corners, showing brief glimpses of the tormented souls trapped within. Faces twisted in anguish, eyes wide with terror, an endless parade of the damned. Ellen's throat constricted. "We need to go." With all her strength, she lunged toward the window, dragging the children behind her as the shadows lashed out in retaliation, tearing at their clothes, clawing at their skin. The house seemed to bend and twist, the structure threatening to collapse around them. Just as they reached the window, a figure stepped forward, its eyes a mix of sorrow and rage. "Stay," it moaned, a sound that echoed with memories of despair. Ellen froze for a heartbeat, caught in the figure's gaze. She felt a flash of pain, an image of her own past, the choice she'd made that had led them here. "No!" she screamed, forcing the thought away. She couldn't let it in. She couldn't let it consume her. "Mom, please," Sam begged, yanking on her arm. They were almost there. She could taste the air outside, fresh and inviting. But the shadows surged forward once more, thick tendrils reaching for her. She gritted her teeth, summoning every ounce of maternal instinct to push through. The whispers turned to screams of protest, reverberating in waves around her. "Jump!" she shouted, breaking free of the shadows' hold and heaving them through the window, glass shattering like a scream into the dark night. They hit the ground hard, rolling into the grass outside. For a heartbeat, they were free. Ellen looked back at the house, the shadows retreating, but the figure still lingering in the window, watching with hollow eyes. "Run," she commanded, pulling her children to their feet. They sprinted away from the house, heart pounding, breath hitching as they stumbled onto the path lined with trees, feeling the weight of the night pressing down. But as they ran, the necklace pulsed again, a warning embedded deep within it. A chilling realization washed over her. They had escaped the house, but whatever they awakened was still hunting them. "What's wrong, Mom?" Mia panted, glancing back, eyes wide with confusion. Ellen couldn't speak. The shadows would follow. They would always follow. But she had to believe they could escape the curse. Would they be safe once dawn broke? Or had they only just entered a darker world? The forest loomed ahead, vast and silent, a black abyss of secrets waiting to swallow them whole. What awaited them on the other side? Would the path lead to safety or plunge them deeper into insanity? The shadows throbbed behind them, whispering promises of what lay just beyond the next turn. The trees towered ominously above, their gnarled branches reaching out like skeletal fingers. Each step felt heavy, as if the ground itself sought to pull them down, to snare them in its terrible embrace. Ellen glanced sideways. Sam and Mia were close behind, their faces a mixture of fear and exhaustion. "Keep moving," she urged, the words gravelly in her throat. Every rustle of leaves, every snap of a twig sent her heart racing. The shadows from the house felt alive, stretching and straining, clawing at the edges of the forest, yearning to claim them back. The necklace around her neck pulsed again, a violent throb that sent icy fingers racing down her spine. Ellen stared at it, its surface reflecting her panic. Why did it pulse? What secrets lay within its cold metal? She pushed the thought aside, focusing instead on the path ahead, the flicker of hope that dawn might still come. "What if they catch us?" Mia's voice quivered in the still night, a sound so fragile it might shatter into 1,000 pieces. Ellen turned back for a moment, the dark maw of the forest seeming to draw closer as she faced the children. "They won't," she insisted, though her voice faltered slightly. "We're strong. We'll make it through." She took a deep breath, summoning determination where it seemed none could exist. The trees parted suddenly, revealing a clearing bathed in moonlight. But the sense of relief was short-lived. The necklace hummed a low, unsettling note, vibrating against her skin. It wasn't done with them. Terror gripped her once more as she felt the shadows lurk just beyond the tree line, their whispers sharpening into distinct words, twisted promises of despair. Blue skies, open fields, Sam murmured under his breath. His eyes glazed, as if the darkness was slowly claiming him. Ellen shook her head, stepping toward him. Focus on me, Sam. Look at me, she shouted. She reached out, physically pulling him to her. His eyes cleared momentarily, panic replaced with a flicker of recognition. Okay, he breathed, gathering himself. But as dawn approached, the shadows twisted closer, stretching in protest with the fading dark. Ellen felt a sharp pang in her heart. They were nowhere near safe, the promise of escape fading into a dismal haze. We have to find shelter, she concluded, surveying the area. There, a dilapidated cabin sat at the edge of the clearing, forlorn and weather-worn. Look, there's a cabin. She pointed, hope mingling with dread. We can hide there. It might offer some protection. Mia nodded, though doubt lined her face. What if it's worse? Only one way to find out. Ellen tightened her grip on the necklace and sprinted for the cabin, dragging both children along with her. Each step felt like an invasion into an unholy realm. The door creaked ominously as Ellen pushed it open, the hinges protesting against time and neglect. Inside, the air was stale and cold, but the walls were lined with echoes of the past photos of faces long gone, their gazes hollow and accusing. Ellen's heart dropped. Were they souls trapped within the world, waiting for release? Mom, Mia breathed as they stepped further inside. The shadows pulled away momentarily, melting into crevices but still lurking, still listening. I don't like it here, Sam stammered, eyes darting around, hunting for movement. A sudden loud crash echoed from outside, the sound of branches splintering. The shadows surged forward, hungry. Fear clenched Ellen's throat. She turned to face the children, but her heart sank when she noticed how the shadows were creeping in around them, encircling them, whispering sweetly in their ears. Something flickered in her mind, an image of the necklace glowing brighter, a last desperate hope. But would it save them, or was it another trap? Hold on tight, Ellen ordered. The children grasped her arms, fear slick beneath their palms. The whispers grew louder, more distinct, urging them to stay, to give in. The walls of the cabin seemed to pulse with agony, a heartbeat of suffering longing for release. But just as Ellen braced for an escape, an icy wind surged through the cabin, extinguishing any flicker of hope. Darkness enveloped them. What do you want? Ellen shouted into the abyss. Silence. Then came a chilling voice, deep and sinister. You've freed us. Now we can play. Ellen's blood ran cold as she realized the forest was alive with malevolence, their only witness to a game that had just begun. As she turned to make a break for the door, the shadows closed in tighter. What awaited them outside would test their very souls. Could they escape, or had it already ended? The final game had only just begun, and Ellen's heart pounded with a dread realization. They might never leave this cursed realm alive. Ellen's breath quickened as shadows danced around her in the cabin. Time blurred. Every second stretched into eternity as the sinister voice echoed again, wrapping around her like a noose. Now we can play. Play? She thought, heart pounding like a hammer against her ribcage. The children squeezed her arms tighter, oblivious to the whispered games echoing around them. Panic threatened to swallow her whole. She had to act. Stay close, she shouted. The door lay just a few feet away, but it felt like an eternity in the grasp of the encroaching darkness. Ellen charged toward it, tugging the children behind her, adrenaline fueling her movements. The shadows slithered along the wooden floor, trying to grasp their ankles like desperate hands. Outside, the world had transformed. The forest, once oppressive, now teemed with shifting shapes. The moonlight barely pierced through the canopy, revealing silhouettes that danced with malicious glee. Low growls echoed through the night, a chorus of unseen watchers urging her on. Run, she screamed, flinging the door open with a violent push. They stumbled outside into the clammy air, the sounds of the shadows receding behind them. Ellen's heart clawed at her throat. She could feel the weight of the necklace, still pulsing, as if it were a heartbeat trying to warn her. What do you want? She whispered. It seemed to pulse in answer, reminding her of secrets yet uncovered. Mom Mia's small voice, fragile as glass, broke through the noise of the night air. Ellen turned sharply, seeing her daughter's face pale under the shroud of fear. What are we running from? She paused, just for a moment. Doubt crept in, cold fingers wrapping around her heart. We need to find a safe place, she said, forcing confidence into her voice. This way. They broke through the cabin's oppressive haze, racing into the thicket of trees. Branches clawed at their faces as they darted, ducking and weaving. The tension was razor-thin, and the air crackled with a tangible sense of danger. Every snap and rustle felt like a warning, the very trees conspiring against them. Suddenly, a blood-curdling screech pierced the night. It was close, too close. Ellen spun, crouching low, instinctively shielding Sam and Mia as they huddled behind her. The sound sliced through the darkness, a harbinger of something far worse than mere shadows. A flicker caught her eye in the depths of the woods, a faint glow shimmering like a will-o'-the-wisp. Was it hope or another trap laid out by the forest? Ignoring her instincts for caution, she pointed toward it, desperation overriding fear. We need to check that out. Mia's breath hitched. What if it's them? Ellen hesitated. We can't stay out here. It's worse among the trees. The screech wailed again, and they pressed forward, the glow growing brighter as they approached a small, isolated hut flickering with light. But as they neared, an overwhelming scent of decay filled the air, twisting Ellen's stomach. She halted, a gnawing dread coiling tight in her chest. Should we go in? Sam asked, voice barely above a whisper. But the shadows danced around the hut like wolves waiting for the kill, and Ellen held her breath. We can't go back. The door to the hut stood ajar, creaking eerily in the night breeze. Gritting her teeth, she pushed it open wider. An altar lay within, draped with ragged cloths, surrounded by flickering candles. On the surface, blood-stained markings twisted into patterns that didn't belong to this world. Ellen's heart plunged. This doesn't feel right. As if alive, the shadows surged forward, coiling around their legs, whispering dark secrets in a language long forgotten. She felt the cold tendrils reach for her, seeking to drag them into a nightmare deeper than darkness itself. Help us, Sam cried, tears streaming down his face. The shadows pulsed, and for a split second, Ellen thought she could hear their laughter, a wretched melody that echoed hopelessly. Ellen's eyes darted back to the necklace, which pulsed insistently as if urging her to make a choice. Could it protect them? Or was it the reason they had been drawn into this horror? Hold on tight, she shouted again, searching the room for any means of protection. But the shadows were hungry, ready to feast on their despair. In that moment, she knew what they must do. Make a stand or lose everything. On my count, we run for the glow. 1, 2, but before she could utter the last number, something halted her breath. A sound grating against every fiber of her being. A soft voice behind them whispered, "Where do you think you're going?" The game has just begun. As the shadows lunged, chilling laughter echoed within the hut. They were trapped, on the brink of something far more sinister than escape. What happened next would change everything. Would they survive the final game, or would they succumb to the darkness for eternity? The shadows thrummed with energy, dragging Ellen's senses into a fever pitch. Laughter crackled in the air, cruel and mocking, as dark figures loomed ever larger, their forms shifting like smoke. She had faced fear before, but this was suffocating. Run! Ellen shouted, sealing her fate with resolve. The glow pulsed like a heartbeat beyond the darkness, an ember of hope she couldn't afford to dismiss. They darted past the altar, squeezing through the door frame, but the shadows surged behind them, eager to grasp what they had marked. Ellen felt the very air grow taut, a tension that threatened to snap. Mia whimpered, "Mom, I can't keep up, just a bit further," Ellen urged, her voice growing raw, desperation clawing at her throat. She tightened her grip on Mia's hand, dragging her along. Sam stumbled, but she yanked him up with the other arm, the connection grounding them even as the trees seemed to close in around them. They ran. Branches whipped against their skin, cutting like knives. A heavy mist rolled in, blinding her momentarily, and Ellen felt her heart hammer against her ribcage, as if it were trying to break free. Shadows slithered past her, whispered secrets swirling in the murky air. You can't escape, you belong to us now. With renewed determination, she pushed through the haze. That small light further away and growing was a beacon, beckoning her closer. Keep moving, she urged, but the weight of terror pulled at her as creeping doubt filled her mind. What if it was a trap? Just before they reached the glow, the ground below erupted into a tortured shriek, tearing them from the safety of flight. Ellen stumbled, the earth seeming to shift beneath her, and in a heartbeat, they were off balance, tumbling down into the abyss of darkness. They landed hard, disoriented and gasping. Ellen quickly scanned her surroundings, blood pumping in her ears. Shadows hovered above, mocking their fall, a cacophony of whispers swirling around them. Mom, where are we? Sam cried, his eyes wide, glistening with tears. It's okay, she murmured, though it felt far from the truth. Just stay close. They were in some kind of thick underbrush, the ground soft and damp beneath them. The light flickered above, but the shadows seemed to feast on their fear, swirling closer, pressing against them like a vice. Ellen could feel the chill seep into her skin, the weight of despair thickening the air until it was hard to breathe. Mia, keep your eyes on me, she said, clenching her fists. If they were going to face whatever came next, she had to remind them of her presence, their connection, the thin thread holding them together. With every ounce of strength, she rose unsteadily, dragging the children with her. Above them, darkness writhed, as if anticipating their next move. The glow pulsed again, almost like the light was alive, and she felt a strange pull deep within her chest. What do you want from us? She yelled, her voice breaking through the silence. For a moment, the whispers halted, an eerie calm settling around them. But then came the laughter again, sharper, more menacing. It's time to play, the shadows chirped, voices intertwining like vines as they quivered on the edge of despair. The light flickered decisively, illuminating a narrow pathway. Ellen hesitated, but the decision was simple. They could stay here and be devoured or take a chance. She scanned the area, uncertainty clawing at her heart. Follow me, she shouted, breaking into a sprint toward the light. Each step felt agonizingly slow, the whispers growing louder as if to drown out her resolve. But they were not alone. A figure emerged from the shadows, outlined against the glow. Ellen skidded to a halt, spine straightening with instinctive dread. The figure stood still, head hung low, obscured by darkness, and yet a terrible familiarity pulsed from it. Mia, Sam, stay back, Ellen warned, each word laced with desperation. The figure lifted its head, eyes glowing like embers in a fire. Ellen. It breathed, a voice that reverberated in her mind, an echo from her past she couldn't fully grasp, yet deemed it deadly familiar. Who are you? She demanded, fear interlacing with something else, an unsettling recognition. The figure took a step forward, shadow and light blurring together. Come play with us. It's your turn now. Just as the figure lunged, the necklace around Ellen's neck flared, casting a blinding light that illuminated all around them, a collision of worlds horrifyingly close. What had begun with a game spiraled into an inevitable confrontation with a past that wouldn't stay buried. And as the haunting whispers crescendoed, echoing her name in a sickly sweet melody, Ellen realized this wasn't just about survival anymore. It was about a reckoning, a game that turned deadly. What price would she pay to escape the truth? The light from the necklace burst forth like a star going supernova, breaking through the choking darkness that surrounded them. Ellen shielded her eyes, the brilliance scalding against the coolness of the shadowed air. In that fleeting moment of luminescence, the figure cringed back, its features marred by dread and a hidden pain that seemed to pulse through the air. Mia, Sam, Ellen shouted, whipping around to ensure they were close at her side. They were rooted in place, eyes wide, captivated by the malevolent aura swirling around the figure, as if unsure whether to flee or confront their fate. Mama! Mia's voice trembled as if the dark figure held her spellbound. With a deep breath, Ellen spun back toward the shadow, who had retreated slightly, a glint of recognition flickering in its ember-like eyes. "You know who I am," it hissed, each word dripping with malice. "You should have forgotten. But here we are. Who are you?" Ellen felt her voice falter, but she pressed on, feeling her heart race against the weight of a past she couldn't outrun. Goosebumps prickled her skin with every second that passed, the growling whispers flooding back, louder and more frantic. "I am your reckoning," it screeched, the shadows coiling around it like a predatory beast catching its prey. Suddenly, a visceral jolt passed through Elena's body, a sickening recognition gnawing at her. She stumbled back as memories surged. An old photograph, laughter trapped in a sunlit moment, blurred faces after a party, a game once played in childhood. It had all turned dark, a truth so horrifying she had buried it deep. "No, this can't be," the laughter echoed once more, resonating from the very depths of her being. "Can, and it will. You dragged them into this." The figure lunged forward again, and the darkness lashed out, swirling around her, igniting a panic that flared in Elena's chest. "Run!" she screamed, though she had no idea where to go. The pulsing glow of the necklace cast a path, yet the shadows rushed to seize it, eager to snuff out that flickering flame of hope. "Mama!" Sam cried out, clinging to her leg with small fingers trembling as the shadows lunged for them both. Elena's mind raced. She swatted at the darkness, even as it enveloped her like a suffocating fog. "Hold on tight," she ordered, grabbing both children with a grip that felt almost desperate. Suddenly, the ground shook beneath them again, the earth rumbling in agreement with the shadows. Splintering trees around them cracked and bowed as dark tendrils reached closer. Ellen felt the pull of despair wrap tighter around her throat. "Your past will consume you, just like it consumed your happy memories," the figure shrieked, its voice echoing in every direction. The scent of earth and decay filled their nostrils, making it harder to breathe. Ellen fought to steady her focus, her gaze darting about, searching for an escape that felt increasingly out of reach. "We can't give up," she said, forcing strength into her voice as she tugged them along. The glow of the necklace brightened, responding to her defiance. "Follow the light." Just as they charged forward, the darkness erupted in a roar, scorning their hope. Trees bent and twisted, branches reached wildly, trying to ensnare. They barreled through, dodging grasping limbs, desperate cries filling the air. Ellen felt the weight of her children each tugging at her heart like a lifeline. For a terrifying moment, Ellen felt something wrap around her ankle, cold and unyielding. She stumbled, nearly falling, but turned instinctively to see the figure emerging once more, a triumphant smile slicing across its shadowy visage. "This is your game, Ellen, and you will play to the end." With a surge of adrenaline, she tore free and rejoined the sprint, the children still in tow. But there was no clear path ahead, only a swirling maze of darkness closing in, whispering secrets she was not yet ready to embrace. "Mom, what do we do?" Sam shouted, his voice tinged with panic, the echoes tightening around them. "Trust me," Ellen cried, knowing that trust was the only currency they had in this unending nightmare. The shadows loomed larger than life, threatening to close in around them with each passing moment. Just when the glow seemed to dim, Ellen spotted another flicker, a glimpse of an exit. Though she couldn't be sure of what lay beyond, with a deep breath, she steeled herself, pushing forward, praying they would not be consumed alive by the terrors demanding to be unleashed. But as they stumbled forward, the shadows seemed to change course, their path mirroring their movement, an endless loop stretching into the void. "Mom, I can't," Mia whimpered, her small voice barely heard over the chaos. Ellen's grip on them tightened, her heart pounding. "We'll make it," she shouted, fear clawing at her throat. They were deeper in than they realized, and she feared that amidst the hideous chase, the figure was right. They were all part of a twisted game with rules they didn't understand. "And it's your turn to bring me in," it whispered, the shadows swirling like impending doom. What would they discover beyond the light? The air was thick with dread as they lunged forward, their feet pounding against the damp earth, hearts racing faster than the shadow's pursuit. Ellen felt the necklace growing heavy around her neck, its light pulsing irregularly, as if it were succumbing to the darkness that clawed at her every step. The whispers grew louder, a cacophony of voices spiraling into a frenzy, echoing her thoughts. You should have forgotten, you should have let go. It was maddening, like a symphony composed of regrets and fears that pricked at her mind, causing her to falter as her thoughts wrestled with her instincts. "Mama!" Mia cried, her voice a threadbare wail that tugged at Elena's heart. Ellen tightened her grip, focusing on the glow that flickered ahead, momentarily banishing the shadows. But for how long? As they forged ahead, they burst into a clearing. The dark figure loomed before them, towering and terrifying, manifesting in the pale light. Its face twisted with malice, and Ellen felt bile rise in her throat as she was confronted by eyes that swirled like black pools, reflecting her own despair. "You cannot escape me, Ellen. Your darkness is mine," it hissed, a predatory smile spreading across its shadowy lips. Emma urged the children forward, eyes darting around for any semblance of hope. Behind them, the tendrils of darkness slithered menacingly, licking at their heels, drawn to the vibrant defiance of the necklace that flickered like a heartbeat. But the fear of what lay ahead, the unknown, tangled within her gut like a serpent coiling tighter. "Mama, where do we go?" Sam's voice shook, barely above a whisper, those innocent eyes pleading for answers that felt out of reach. "Follow the light," she shouted, but doubt seeped into her voice like a slow poison. What could the light truly lead to, salvation or further torment? Driven by instinct, they dashed deeper into the clearing, the shadows splitting around them like a grotesque wave unwilling to let go. Trees twisted overhead, gnarled branches no longer offering refuge, but rather resembling fingers ready to snatch them back into the abyss. "Close your eyes," Ellen commanded, though she could barely hear herself over the taunting whispers rising to a crescendo. The children complied, trusting their mother despite the terror enveloping them. Each step they took felt like a gamble. Every heartbeat echoed a question. Could they escape? Suddenly, a low rumble split the air, like thunder that pronounced impending doom. Ellen stumbled again but steadied herself, pushing against the encroaching chill that threatened to freeze her very resolve. The darkness warped and contorted, urging her to relent. "You're chasing shadows, my dear." The figure's voice slithered between them, thick with gluttonous pleasure. "There's no way out," it jeered, a sharp laughter reverberating in her ears. "This is the end of your wretched game." Ellen gritted her teeth, the wild spiral of desperation igniting a fire somewhere deep inside her. Steeling herself, she blurted, "You don't control us. We're stepping out of your nightmare." She could feel the children's energy pulsing against her, the belief that maybe, just maybe, there was a way through. And then, just as she thought the weight of despair would crush them, another glimmer flickered in the far corner of her vision. Not just a glow and opening, a potential escape that pulsed with energy resembling her necklace. "Over there," Ellen shouted, pushing through a sudden surge of fear, the figure's mocking laughter trailing behind them like a shadow itself. They raced toward the light, the ground quaking beneath their feet as though the earth itself resented their flight. Yet every step forward was matched by a surge of darkness from behind, a soul-crushing reminder of accounts yet to be settled, histories intertwined. How could she outrun something so ingrained in her very being? What awaited them on the other side? Would the light lead to safety, or would it pull back the veil to reveal the nightmares she had locked away? As they neared the escape, the ground rumbled with an almost sentient threat, closing the gap between clarity and salvation. Ellen felt a chill rush through her like a warning. "No matter what happens, stick together," she yelled, propelling her family forward but bracing herself for the revelation that lay ahead. Did they have the strength to face the unknown, or would they be consumed by the very shadows they feared? The shadows rushed around them, their whispers echoing like a harsh wind, a cacophony pressing in from every direction. Ellen felt her heart racing, a desperate drumbeat marking their final moments before the abyss. The ground shook violently beneath them, as if the earth sought to swallow them whole. "Focus," she shouted, pulling Sam and Mia closer, keeping them anchored in her trembling embrace as they sprinted toward the flickering light. A surge of panic threatened to overwhelm her. She could feel the darkness chasing them, swirling with malicious intent, clawing at her thoughts. "You should have forgotten it," laughed, a horrible voice taunting her very soul. Ellen gritted her teeth, pushing through the onslaught, fueled by the love she held for her children. "Mom, I can't keep going," Mia cried, her voice breaking with exhaustion and fear. Ellen turned to see her daughter's pale face, filled with terror. "We have to keep moving," she urged, her own voice cracking under the weight of despair. The light ahead burst with ferocity, pulsing like a heartbeat, illuminating their path. "Just a little further," Ellen gasped, each word fueling the fire in her chest. As they closed the distance, the shadows surged forward, their dark forms distorting and twisting, reaching for the necklace that hummed with energy around Ellen's neck. Then fear swept through her like ice. The figure emerged again, looming with sinister delight, its voice smooth and cold. "You cannot escape your past, Ellen. It's time to face the truth." "No," Ellen shouted defiantly, but doubt crept into her mind. The memory's dark games and haunting laughter rushed back like a tidal wave. She had thought they were buried, but they rose now, bringing the chill of forgotten sorrows. But she couldn't let the darkness win, not for her or for her children. "Stay close," Ellen commanded, pushing them forward as they stumbled into the illuminated space. And then, like stepping through a veil, they broke into the warm glow. Four walls surrounded them, a small, quaint room filled with relics of forgotten times, soft light pouring in through lace-draped windows. Ellen stumbled, her breath hitching as a wave of comfort washed over her, but doubt clawed at her heart. The shadows could still reach them. "Mama?" Mia's voice trembled. "Is it safe?" Ellen scanned the room. A dust-covered table held scattered photos and trinkets from the past, distant echoes of laughter and joy that made her heart ache. "It has to be safe. It must be," she whispered, forcing herself to breathe in the hope lingering in the air. The shadows edged closer, still coiling around the doorway, hissing in frustration. "You can't hide from your game," echoed the figure, its voice breaking the ethereal calm. But Ellen felt a spark ignite deep inside her, and she clutched the necklace tightly. "No, I won't play anymore," she screamed. The light from the necklace surged brighter, illuminating the room further, casting away the shadows inch by inch. The figure screeched a blend of fury and horror as the shadows withdrew, pushing against the bright warmth that enveloped Ellen and her children. "You're breaking the rules," it howled, but Ellen's heart raced with newfound courage. "Not anymore," she yelled, stepping forward, the power surging through her. This was her moment. She had the choice to break free, to sever the ties that bound her to the dark past. "We'll write our own rules from now on." The necklace flared in response, and the oppressive presence of shadows shrieked now, retreating as if scorched by the fierce light. Ellen felt the walls begin to shake, the room vibrating with energy. "We can do this together," she said, looking at Sam and Mia, their faces illuminated with hope and determination. They joined hands tightly, creating a circle of light, joined as a family against the darkness. In that moment, the walls melted away, revealing a vast landscape bathed in brilliant sunlight, the whispers growing faint and distant. The shadows fought back, but the bond they forged shone brighter, a radiant light that cut through the cloudy doubts, illuminating the path ahead. As the darkness receded, Ellen felt a weight lift from her chest. "We're free," her heart sang, echoing in the vast expanse. But in the shadows, the figure remained, seething in silence, the reminder that some games never truly ended. Yet Ellen took a step forward with her children, embracing the dawn that surged brighter, leaving the haunted past behind. "Together, always," she whispered, and so they ran, hand in hand toward the horizon, ready to forge the future they chose for themselves, leaving the darkness in the rearview, a faded memory echoing just beyond the light. If you loved how this tale unfolded, you need to subscribe now. Smash that like button now and help us keep the magic alive. Flood the comments with your thoughts and theories, sharing what you felt as we reached this conclusion. And don't wait even one more second to share the story with 5 friends who need this inspiration right now. Let us keep the adventure going together.